ৰাতিপুৱা 9টা বাজিছে গুড মৰ্নিং এণ্ড আমি আজি এটা ইউনিক এপিছড শ্বুট কৰিছোঁ ইউজুৱেলি সদায় পডকাষ্টৰ ইণ্ট্ৰ আমি এটা ষ্টুডিঅ'ত বহি পেলাই লাইট চাউণ্ড ছেটিং মিলাই কৰোঁ বাট দিছ ইজ ইন আ কাৰ এণ্ড আমাৰ এই নতুন ফৰ্মেট অফ এপিছড মই নতুন ফৰ্মেট অফ এপিছড বুলি নকওঁ এইটো পাৰ্টিকুলাৰ এপিছড আমি আজি কাজিৰঙাত গৈ পেলাই কৰি আছোঁ অসমত বানপানীত কাজিৰঙা বহুত এফেক্ট হৈছে এণ্ড ইনষ্টেড অফ ডুইং আ ফান ইণ্টাৰভিউ উই ডিচাইডেড টু ডু ছামথিং ডিফাৰেণ্ট ছামথিং ইউনিক এজ এ পাৰ্ট অফ দ্য গুৱাহাটী কানেকশ্যন পডকাষ্ট আমাৰ লগত জুৰি থাকক ৰাস্তাত চাওঁ গোটেইখিনি কি হয় গোটেই এক্সপিৰিয়েঞ্চটো আপোনাৰ লগত শ্বেয়াৰ কৰিম হাউ উই ট্ৰেভেল ফ্ৰম গুৱাহাটী টু কাজিৰঙা এতিয়া টোল গেট কেইটামান পাৰ কৰিছোঁ আৰু ৰাস্তাটো খুব এটা ভাল পোৱা নাই কঁকালত বহুত কষ্ট হৈছে বাট লাগি থাকক চাই থাকক এণ্ড জাষ্ট বৰষুণ এৰিছে বাট লাগিছে আৰু অলপ আহিব পাৰে ঠিক নাই আই ডোণ্ট ন' ষ্টে টিউন নেক্সট ষ্টপত ভিডিঅ'টো আৰু এবাৰ শ্বুট কৰিম আমি কাজিৰঙা আহি পালোঁ উই হেভ ছাকচেছফুলি হেড আৰ এণ্ট্ৰি হিয়াৰ এট কাজিৰঙা with all the speed limiters and the patrolling constantly on the roads, which is a good thing. And we have made our first stop at the Bura Pahar range office where we are going to be meeting a range officer who's going to be telling us about what it means to be serving inside Kaziranga during these dire and hard times of the Assam floods.
Kaziranga is always kind of busy place, but still from last 20 to 25 days since flood season occurs, so we are very much busy in this place. Not only us, all of our staff 24/7 they are on duty. I mean hardly they have slept 3-4 hours in the whole 24 hours. So day and night our patrolling is going on.
And finally, we have reached. We are here at the Director's Office of Kaziranga National Park. Welcome to this special episode of Guwahati Connection, which is a special out-of-town episode. We have gone out of Guwahati and we're going to be meeting a person who's been responsible for handling several thousand species of animals in these hard times during the Assam floods. My guest for today is an IFS officer. Her name is Sonali Ghosh. Sonali Ghosh, as an IFS officer, took charge of the Kaziranga National Park as the field director sometime in September 2023. Also making her the first woman director of the Kaziranga National Park in its 118 years of glory. I think that is something amazing. Come, we'll speak to her today about her background of her family being in the army, how she ventured into wildlife care, how she ventured into the services, and how today she's taking care of Assam's pride and prestige, the Kaziranga National Park. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for giving your time and for being so kind and opening your doors to us. How's it going?
Yeah, no, thanks to that. It's been quite a while since we last met. I remember we met in a college in Guwahati. You were covering a youth program and I was happily into, research and all that. But now I'm here in Kaziranga and to answer your question, it's like, I have lost count of the days. It's every day is a new day.
Right. On that context, first of all, the first female director for Kaziranga National Park in about 118 years of KNP's glory. What does that signify for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor, first of all. It's an honor. It's something where the trust in me, in the faith in me by the government, that kind of is reinforced. And also being a woman, I think I can bring in some other perspectives, some other connects because of the fact that, the gender differences are there in terms of how we deal with the situation. But other than that, I think it's work as usual, it's business as usual. And yes, and I hope to live up to the expectations.
Now let's talk about the hard part.
Yes.
Hard part is Assam floods. Okay, Assam floods leaves thousands and lakhs of people affected every time, and everyone says lakhs of people affected. Uh, at some point, people lose count, and the news reports stop coming in. The same goes for animals. How does Assam flood affect Kaziranga National Park?
Yeah, so flood is a annual phenomena for Kaziranga. We all must appreciate that a flood is good for Kaziranga. Reason being that this is a floodplain ecosystem. I mean, if you close your eyes and if you imagine how Kaziranga is, the first thing which comes to you is a picture is of a water body, the beels, the grasslands, and the river Brahmaputra. So that is what is Kaziranga. So for us, I think flood is something that we are geared up, we are prepared in terms of dealing with it. Yes, you're right that sometimes if it's a very hard flood, like for example this year, where we broke the 1991's record in terms of the water levels, and it came suddenly, it came in within 3 hours. It can be a challenge, especially because you have a lot of animals moving, you have a lot of human areas and things like that. So yes, it's a challenge. And because as you said, the park has a history of over 100 years, oh, more than 70 odd years of an active management. So we were much better geared this time than any of the years.
So when you are geared year on year, how do you prepare for the floods? What does the park do? What do you do?
Yeah, very important question, and I think a good one, because it's very active management, and I think Kaziranga excels in it. And when I say Kaziranga, it's basically our front line. The people who manage our park, and the preparation starts way back in February, March. So February, March is the time. By end of February, we have burnt the grasslands so that we don't have very harsh fires. We don't, we can get fresh grass. Our driest month is probably, I would say, April. March, April is the time when it becomes dry. And April also there is a rainfall. And what we do after that is that we prepare to clear our boat lines. Just like we clear up our, roads, the same way we clear our areas where we know that the boat can move smoothly without, getting into any sort of a vegetation. So boat lines are prepared. Every camp we prepare, we ready the country boats. So we have around 233 odd camps, and in all camps we provide one country boat or maximum two boats, so that the people have the mobility. If there is a flood, then we know that these people can use the country boat and move.
When you say people, are you talking about your team, or are you talking about people who are somewhere settled illegally encroached in Kaziranga?
Right. So it is our own people. The Kaziranga model of conservation is where you have one area, let's say a grassland patch, and you have one camp. And that camp, we call it as anti-poaching camp. And in that camp, you have around 3 to 4 people who live there years together. Sometimes they can live for 20 years, 30 years. Sometimes they live for 1 year, 2 years. But these are our forest guards. These are our front line who man these positions. And what they do, their job is to do regular 24/7 duty of patrolling, of hearing the sounds. So if there is any gunshot which happens in the area, they are able to detect, they are able to listen to it. And that's how we have been able to, reduce the number of poaching which has happened in the park. There are no encroachers in the park.
Okay. So you prepare for the floods with, you have a team, you have camps who are deployed with boats and mechanized and both country boats. How do you think this year's flooding was, say, one of the worst in the history? Would you agree that this year's flooding has been quite damaging? Would you consider it bad, worse?
Well, the flood this time was I would not say that it was worse, as I said, because floods are essential for Kaziranga. We need them to recharge our water bodies. So we have these beels, we have over 300 water bodies. So what happens is over the years, if there is no flood, these water bodies get filled up with water hyacinth, metica, they get silted up. They become like, and unless we have water in our park, we will not be able to sustain our animals. So when the flood comes, it makes them, it's like a washing machine. It's a nature's washing machine. It cleans up the water bodies and everything just goes off.
Okay. But I have some data, you may substantiate it, validate it, but every year approximately 200 odd animals lose their lives in the process of this replenishment of the ecosystem. Then how do you address that problem?
So, yes, okay, these numbers are of concern for sure. But if you see this data also, 90% of it is what? It's hog deer, right? And if you see the overall population of hog deer in the park, it's around 40,000. So now you calculate the percentage. It's less than 0.0001, which is a natural mortality in the hog deer.
Okay. So that way the
It's a balance. It's the nature's way of balancing, Otherwise, there will be overpopulation, then the habitat will degrade, So it's a nature's way of taking care and what we say survival of the fittest and everything. Our effort is to minimize what can cause due to humans. That is our aim. What happens naturally, let's say by floods or anything, we can't really do much. But road accidents, poaching, hunting, these are the things that we should address.
And do you think that somewhere under your direction or maybe the previous directors, Kaziranga has found this balance or is yet to find that balance?
It has. See, as I said, Kaziranga, officers like me and they will come and go, but Kaziranga will continue. And that's the beauty of Kaziranga. It's the front line. It's one of the parks which has more than 1,500 frontline, So and this is like unparalleled in the world. If you compare, we see a lot of, these South African parks in National Geographic, Serengeti and so on. If you compare the number, they rely more on technology, So they have helicopters and they have the latest of equipment, but they don't have the manpower. The foot soldiers, we have the foot soldiers here. And that is the beauty.
Then now that you're mentioning and appreciating the people who are working the front lines in hardships and in the good times also, how does the team deal with the hardships when the times are bad, when 20 days at a stretch, when I think Brahmaputra breached on 3rd of July, it's been about 20 days since. How has the team been facing the hardship? How are the frontline workers living in the harsh time? What do they do to cope up with things?
Yes, it is tough. Honestly, when the floods came this time, and this was my experience for the first time, it is really tough on the front line, especially who are in the interior camps, because you do not have access anywhere, you cannot move. B is the food, and please remember that these camps are without electricity. So the only way is a solar powered light or a wireless charging or a mobile charging unit. That's it. So it is tough for them because it's very basic, but at the same time we are all geared up. So for example, we have this system here where each range we have community ration system. So so there is a boat, a speed boat, which carries the ration, which goes in, gives it to the camps and so on. This time we were able to use the state disaster relief boats as well, and we used their people, and we were able to reach out to all our people.
Was this not available before?
Well, it was, but we just tried to improve it, I think. I mean, we were like they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, right? So we were able to, take it head on. We were like not waiting for that, okay, the floods will hit us and, this is what we will do. So we were very actively uh, going to it. And it really helped that the government was supporting us.
Is it that इससे पहले support नहीं था?
नहीं था नहीं था, but where would you find the CM of a state, Honorable Chief Minister, coming here on 15th of June and doing a flood review meeting with all the departments just for Kaziranga? मतलब ये unheard of है. Usually you find people coming in, politicians coming in after something has happened, right? Here 15 days ago, and nobody knew that it will come on 1st of July. On 15th of June, he came and there was a meeting of all the departments just for Kaziranga. So that really helped us because lot of directions, lot of, decisions in terms of how we'll gear up for taken.
How does the news of animals in distress reach to you? For example, you mentioned that there are teams living in interior areas and there are camps and they are not with a lot of they have difficulty in rations. Also, they have difficulty in access to electricity. But then adding to this is it's not even knee deep flood water. It's drowning floods. How does animal distress news information reach to you? Are you working on some kind of a WhatsApp system, a mechanism? I would like to understand more. ये interiors का information आप तक कैसे पहुँचता है?
इंटीरियर्स का हम लोग को पहुंचता है थ्रू वायरलेस सिस्टम्स, जो कि हम लोग का फ्लड हो ना हो वो रहता है, क्योंकि वायरलेस हम लोग का जो है वो हमारी लाइफलाइन है काजीरंगा की. अगर जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि वायरलेस क्यों हुआ काजीरंगा में, वो मोस्टली पोचिंग को कॉम्बैट करने के लिए हुआ. कहीं पे भी गन शॉट होता है, फर्स्ट थिंग इज़ वायरलेस पे आता है मैसेज, तो वो हम लोग का सिस्टम है. बट येस, यू आर राइट कि अभी जैसे अब फ्लड वाटर्स धीरे धीरे जब कम होंगे, जब रास्ते खुलने शुरू होंगे, तभी हमें एक्चुअली पता लगेगा
अच्छा
कि क्या हुआ है एग्जैक्टली. या बिकॉज राइट नाउ वी आर गेटिंग व्हाट दे आर एबल टू सी इन देयर विसिनिटी.
राइट, एग्जैक्टली.
लेकिन इसके अलावा हमारा जो मैंने आपको बताया कि वो एक नेचुरल कॉज है, उस पर हम लोग का बहुत ज़्यादा मतलब वी कैन नॉट डू मच ऑन इट. इफ़ एन एनिमल हैज़ drowned inside the park, we really cannot do much. But as I said, our focus is on कि गाँव में कहीं पे, और इसी के लिए यहाँ पे जो communities हैं, they have been extremely supportive. तो मोबाइल से, जैसे अभी आपको पता होगा 2 राइनो के बच्चे रेस्क्यू हुए हैं, और ये किसी के घर पे रेस्क्यू हुए हैं. There is one lady and I was part of that rescue operation. So in the morning she opened a door and she found a rhino, a baby rhino in her back garden. And rather than panicking, rather than attacking, they informed the department. फिर डिपार्टमेंट आया और उसको ऑब्जर्व किया हम लोगों ने काफ़ी. हमने सोचा कि भाई वो अपने आप चला जाएगा. इट डिडंट गो. उसके बाद फिर वो शाम में फिर हमारी टीम उसको पकड़ने गई तो उसने चार्ज किया, हम फिर भागे. तो इट वाज वेरी इट वाज लाइक लिटरली एड्रेनालिन रश, क्योंकि एक इट इज़ 1.5 month years राइनो को पकड़ना आसान नहीं है. तो बट देन इट वाज द लेडीज पेशेंस दैट कि शी लिव्ड विद द राइनो फॉर almost a day.
Right. And so they relay this information to the local camp, and then the camp sends it back to you. You send the patrol team and you send the rescue team, and then a rhino is saved. That's a beautiful story. Now, do you think Kaziranga gets international and domestic attention? Enough international and enough domestic attention?
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes for domestic, no for international. I think we can do better, a lot better in international.
How do you think that can be made better, and whose onus is it to make it better?
I think it's everybody's, including you and me. It's like from channels like you, and to popularize, to like, I think from what my understanding is that 90% of our tourists are anyway domestic, and the foreigners who visit, they come with certain ideas. There are some myths or conceptions, or Maybe they don't have access to information. I don't know. It could be a language barrier as well. So these are things which will come slowly, and I think a very active campaign can help.
And what does Kaziranga National Park do directly to impact international tourism? Is there something that you do to directly impact international tourism?
Yes. So, like for example, the World Heritage Tag, so that's a global tag. It's a UNESCO World Heritage. As you know, we have the World Heritage Committee meeting, which is happening right now in Delhi. And we do have some of our Kaziranga champions who are attending. So it is, I would not say direct, but indirectly, yes. There is a global, name for Kaziranga. Yes.
And now this may be a little ironic, considering the conversation that we just had. But do you support mass tourism in Kaziranga?
No, I don't think I would support mass tourism. That's why we have something called a carrying capacity concept. We say that this much is what we can allow. And as of now, there are certain pockets which have mass tourism, and there are certain pockets which don't get tourism at all.
Ma'am, can you also highlight by name them?
Yes. So, for example, Kohra Baguri. Everybody who comes in only wants to go there. And Bura Pahar, which is probably much better, much higher, richer, they don't get enough tourists. And there are various reasons for it. Either people are not aware, or there is, they feel, oh, too lazy to go so far. And also in terms of the facilities, like the North Bank. Kaziranga is not just the south, it's in North Bank, it's on the Nagaon side, but we don't have the infrastructure as of now. We don't have enough gypsies in the North Bank. So even if a person goes, there won't be a, safari vehicle. So those are some of our challenges.
Just as a situation or as a thought process, last year Kaziranga had about 3 lakh tourists, of which about 13,000 tourists were international tourists, and the remaining 2 lakh 87,000 were domestic tourists. So the domestic tourists are coming looking at Kohra and Baguri.
I would assume, they are mostly coming for that. We seem to have certain favorites. For example, like our eastern range, Agaratoli, is famous with birders, because they get a lot of migratory birds. So when you say birders, we also get a lot of foreigners who are birders coming to eastern range. Then we have these classic tiger, tourists, tigers. So tiger enthusiasts, and recently we had these golden tiger, darshan. So that golden tiger gave us darshan in Bagori range. So everybody just headed for Bagori. So there are some fad moments, where people want to go here or there. And but yeah, I mean, there are so many other beautiful places which I think through your channel, through everybody, we would want to focus on.
You mentioned the golden tiger, which was not on my list, but now I have a question. Wasn't the golden tiger a part of an inbreeding conversation also that occurred? I think it is a golden tiger is an unnatural phenomenon because of inbreeding.
Well, that is what is a very, what would I say? When we read about inbreeding in class 8, right? So that is how it would be. You have inbreeding, and that's how the genetics will. But the deeper we dive into it, and with enough of science and knowledge, it could have several reasons, right? And very interestingly, the team which is looking at that genetics, they have not been able to find that clue yet. So until that time, I think we will say it's safe.
It's a good thing to spot a golden tiger then. Okay. Now that you mentioned that we don't want mass tourism, you're also aware that there are a lot of hotels in the works, a lot of infrastructure that is being supported. That is the irony that we clearly have at play. First question around this is Kanchanjuri Tea Estate. It's an animal corridor, and you're aware of a fancy property inside the premises. Does that not impact animal movement?
Yeah. See, now for example, when you said Kanchanjuri Tea Estate is separate, and Kanchanjuri corridor is separate. You know, I mean, it's like we even have a Kanchanjuri village, right? So there we need to be a little more clear in terms of where and what the animals are moving and where properties are. So I think it would be unfair to, you know, single out certain properties, and we could say that yes, okay, there would be, you know, development. There is bound to be you know, hotels and resorts and everything come in. But yes, as of now, in our Kaziranga area, all the corridors are intact.
Okay. And how much say does Kaziranga National Park have in the establishment of a premise or a property in such situations?
It does. So, for example, what we have as per the environmental laws, you know, we have what we call as the eco-sensitive zone. So, within eco-sensitive zone, if there is any activity which can impact Kaziranga, we have a say. So, for example, you are aware that we don't have any more mining or stone quarries around Kaziranga, right? Because they were in the eco-sensitive zone. Very recently, there was news that there was a barricade which was put on the highway. There were some lights put on the highway, but they are all gone because we took it up with the authorities that, you know, these could be detrimental to the wild migrating animals, and that's how it was done. So same goes for the resorts and hotels. You know, we do have a say, and we can try, or we can enforce when we say that okay, this is going to have a detrimental impact.
Okay. So, and just to clearly lay it out, and if I ask you in one simple, very one single question, the number of resorts, hotels which are in the works, how does that impact Kaziranga's ecosystem?
Exactly. So, as I said, you know, this whole aspect of resorts currently and homestays, or for that matter, you know, small hotels, they can. I mean, the most important could be their water and sanitation. You know, the sewage disposal. You know, so there are of course different rules, different acts for dealing with it, and there isn't a study per se, or that, you know, what is their sewage disposal which is impacting Kaziranga or the, you know, the water bodies. But there could be, as such, in terms of okay, the lights, the night lights which are being used, or for that matter, if there are any animals going, is there any impact? So there could be a study which could be done, but as of now I would say that yes, I mean, so far so good. We haven't seen any sort of a very glaring visible impact, or because of that we have had this issue.
Okay. And do you think by that time it will be a little too late?
Yeah, okay, yes, I could say that yes, we cannot have too many, you know, hotels or mushrooming of resorts, as we say, around our landscape, and that's the reason why we need to diffuse. That's why I think it could be good if people go more to the north bank, go more into Nagaon, you know, to the Pura Sapuri landscape, stay there, or you know, do that.
All right. Now, another another conversation around the Kaziranga park is the elevated corridor. I think that there was a time slated sometime very soon, but then the conversation may have never matured. Do you think the elevated corridor benefits Kaziranga or impacts Kaziranga?
See, elevated corridor is actually it's a old concept. You know, it's at least 20 odd years it has taken for the highway project to mature. Earlier, it was a theoretical concept. It was something which was an ideal, you know, because it's followed everywhere globally. Having you know, elevated highways is something which is done all over the world in our animal parks. So it was there, but I think we never had that kind of a money. Now the government is committed. They want to pump in that amount of funds required to place. So it's a good one. It's something which has, you know, finally come in. But at the same time, for me it would be okay, we are building it, but what would be the time frames, what would be the working season, because you know, we cannot work during the floods, the animals would be moving. So these nuances, these, where the pass should be, where the underpass will be, these are something which a good design can help us with. So that we would be looking for.
But as a park director, you are in favor and you are supporting the.
Yes, because it is not that it's an entire, flyover. It's basically the key areas where the corridors, that animal corridors are. That's where the road will be on elevated track.
Now, of course, the most concern around the biggest concern around Kaziranga has been poaching. When will the threat of poaching end? And please, let me repeat this also by saying that I am not particularly talking about rhino poaching. I know that the threat of poaching is quite a large umbrella, and thus I chose to ask, when will the threat of poaching end?
See, to answer that question, I would only say that when the buying stops, the poaching will stop. So it is, we all know that, and when we say about rhino poaching specially, it is the most elite, the most rich, not in our country but somewhere else, who are doing this. So if they are fueling the trade, it will continue, and people, and there will always be some opportunist who would want to make a quick money. So it has to be a sort of a change in our entire generation's thinking of how we look at rhinos and the rhino horn as a consumer item. So that is one. And of course, with strengthened systems, with what we do, which is on ground, having better surveillance systems, better networks, better interdepartmental coordination, is something which will help in controlling.
In terms of percentage, can we see that when you took charge in September 23 and by say September 24, poaching has been brought down from XYZ to XYZ minus percentage? Do you think that is something that you could claim?
No, I don't think so. Rather, we were taken aback with the January poaching, because that's something which, personally to me, it really shook me. I wasn't expecting it, and this time it was not one but two which was done in together. So yes, not that, I have, as I said, Kaziranga goes on. Directors will come and go, but it's the system.
What kind of strict action have you been able to implement against poaching, in support of animals, of course, against poaching?
Yes. So as I said, that it's a pride of Assam. Kaziranga, the way it is managed, the way we take care of our anti-poaching strategies, is all being planned at much higher level, and with everybody's support. So, for example, in case of Kaziranga this time, we got commando action groups of the police. So never before. So this was a new thing which was done after the January incident, and there were these action groups of police which were brought in, and especially to look at what we call as area domination, it is called, where they go in and they kind of look for poachers, and they kind of.
I did recently learn of this word, which is amazing. We would also love it if you could explain to our viewers today what area domination is. How, there's a squad, there's a force squad with AK-47s.
So as we know, commando, the term commando means a person who is ready for all sorts of conditions, right? So these are people who are specially trained for that. So they understand the psychology that, okay, there could be bad people and they need to be dealt in a certain manner. So area domination is what to say, it's like when you are not kind of dealing with the criminal, but at the same time you're showing your presence, that we are here and we are alert and we are looking at you, we are watching you, and if there is anything that untowards do, we are there. So that is the area domination. Yeah.
Ma'am, tell us about the endangered species in Kaziranga. There are many. Sorry, just asking for my knowledge. Is the Kaziranga still is tiger still considered endangered in Kaziranga?
So tigers are globally endangered because there are less than, I would say, 4,000 of them, right, in the world. So that's why they are still endangered. Same with the rhinos. Like, for example, we have 70% of the world's population of rhinos, but they are all here, right? So it's like 2,600 odd rhinos that we have in Kaziranga. Now, that's 70% of the population. So if there is something, and then we have a problem of these animals being just here, nowhere else. So there are endangered animals, and they might look, oh, there are so many here, but then at the same time they're not everywhere else, right? So yeah.
So there are a lot of endangered species in
Yes.
Kaziranga,
Yes.
and I think recently the Salazar,
The pit viper.
the pit
Yeah.
viper was found.
Yes.
And so my question, when you find an endangered species, what goes on inside the park? How does the communication come? Is it all excitement? Is it all, people do they tiptoe around? If you could help us live vicariously about that experience.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it is pretty exciting. I think for all foresters, I mean, and especially, all of us who, you've taken it up because that's our subject. It's so exciting, like to see a Salazar's pit viper and to connect it. Oh, that's the Harry Potter snake, So it is exciting. Same thing is, very recently we were doing a bird count, right? We were doing the bird count, and somebody spotted a binturong, which is like, very rare. So there is excitement, it's happiness, it's a different sense of happiness. And wow, we have found it. As of now, I think we just keep it at that. We haven't done beyond that, But if we have resources, if we have the time, we might want to know how many Salazars are there eventually. Yeah.
So I wanted to understand a little bit about tigers in Kaziranga in particular. If you could share with our viewers something about their population numbers, their behavior and their habits. If someone's coming to Kaziranga, where to spot a tiger? Although I don't know if that is an absolute thing or not. And eventually what you are doing in particular for preservation of tigers.
Kaziranga is famous for rhinos. And tigers were, until recently, until the golden tiger, was a backseat. And in a sense, people identify Kaziranga as you can't see everything except the tiger because it's so difficult. But this year, I mean, my observation for the last year is that tiger sighting has been amazing. It has been so much that people have come to Kaziranga specifically for tigers. So it is an indication, maybe the numbers have increased. We will know because we have just finished our camera trap. So we count the tigers. So we have just done that, but we have to, analyze the data. There are 4 lakh photographs. So now our team is sorting them out and looking at what kind of tigers are there. But the last count is 104 tigers. So, and how do we save them? So to save a tiger, one should save its food, which is the deer. And we have 40,000 deer. So how much can a tiger eat? One can call.
So for in terms of food and resources, a tiger gets to live in abundance here. All right. And in terms of all the animals who have been affected by the flood, how does Kaziranga National Park, how do you ensure rehabilitation of the animals?
Yes. So we have, I think today's morning's data of rescue. So 125 rescued, for example. We tend to not keep them for long. That's one golden rule with wild animals. Don't touch them until it is necessary. So the moment it is rescued, and when we say where have we rescued? Let's say in somebody's house, or it's stranded somewhere or stuck in some place. We rescue it, take it, check it, a doctor checks it, and then we put it back. So that is how we have been able to do the rescue and rehabilitation very quickly. If there is a small animal, for example, this rhino baby, now this baby would need some more time. It won't be easy to release it because it can get eaten by a tiger. So we'll have to keep the baby for a while.
Okay. And in as we wrap up this conversation, I have one question around the geography of Kaziranga. Is Kaziranga losing land for erosion?
Yes, in a way, the Brahmaputra is eroding on the southwards, but also depositing somewhere. And what we have found is that the erosion is higher than the rate of deposition. So some areas, for example, on the eastern bit, there are some erosions due to the flow of the channel of the water, and we had some discussions with the water resources department as to if we could find some solutions to do that, and I think we'll take it up actively.
Okay. And do you have any data around this that, we lost this much and then.
Yes, so there was a satellite based study, and we got it that for the eastern range, I think roughly around 30 square kilometer was lost in the last 30 years. So it's pretty big. But then, it's something which needs to be really analyzed, and a project has to be done properly to understand the river dynamic.
Correct. Plus the restructuring of the Kaziranga Park overall, right? And as one of the final questions, you are widely appreciated for the One Durga team that you have. If you could please tell us about their work, what they do, what they bring to the Kaziranga ecosystem.
Yeah, I think I'm very proud of my One Durga team. As you know, that last year there was massive recruitment in the forest department. We had over 3,000 people who were recruited after a very long time. Usually, if last year you would have done the interview, there would be a question, oh, there are mostly old people. But then we got this, complete young blood. Yeah, the people came in. And it was very good that we had around 300 were women who were brought in. And they are forest guards, they are foresters, which is very, like the starting rung of our pyramid. And these women were trained in combat in the police training schools in Dergaon. So they are as good as their male counterparts, because there was always this thing that, oh, this is a man's job, right? To live inside a park and to use a gun or weapon, or for that matter, to have that hardship. But now these women are equally adept. And it was such a proud moment for all of us when Honorable Prime Minister came to Kaziranga. He was the first Prime Minister to come in since it's a national park. And he named them Vandurgas. So he met them, he gave them a big boost, pepped them up. And these girls have been amazing. Most of them, and we never thought, many of them, these girls are from Majuli, so they know how to row a boat also. So they are pretty cool, so they are in a camp and they have a boat. And most of them are from, not from Guwahati. They are all from small towns, some villages. So they are pretty used to, living in nature. Yeah.
Do you want them to be from Guwahati?
Well, it would be tough, I guess, for a city kid to live in the hardships. But not having said that, I'm sure if they like it, they would love to be here.
And now that you mentioned that it's a hard life here inside the park, how does your day usually go? What do you do around your day, ma'am?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, in the beginning, I mean, I've lost count of days, honestly, days and nights. Sometimes it's very hectic, like it was in the first week of the flood. Sometimes it's relaxed, like today I'm talking to you. So it is a little, what to say, it's tough in a sense, but then if one is lucky, if the family is sorted, so I'm lucky that my family is sorted, so I can spend time. But yeah, it's a lot of firefighting, as to say. Yeah.
It's ironic, right? So much water and yet there's
Yeah,
firefighting. Anyway, ma'am, for your time and for your wonderful words and your wisdom, I really appreciate it. And I thank you for your time and giving us this conversation for this episode of Guwahati Connection.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. And thank you so much for finding the time to come in. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, guys, for everyone who watched this episode to the end, make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and also go and give the Instagram page of Kaziranga National Park a quick follow. It's amazing the kind of work that is needed to continue preserving the Kaziranga National Park, and the kind of people who work, the people who are involved from the community to run a 118-year-old park, and we only hope that this number continues to grow with better things ahead. Thanks so much once again. Cheers. I'll see you in the next episode.